let's quickly go to Abuja studios where we have Thomas Greenfield, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Africa. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
What would be your assessment of this particular election?
Well, we are still in the assessment process, but having participated in on an observer team on Saturday, I have to say I was quite impressed with the commitment and the resolve of the voters. Many of them, as I was hearing on one of your comments there, stood in line, some from 6 o'clock in the morning, and they stayed until the count was completed. This took a tremendous amount of patience, and we were all noting that this would not happen in the United States. No one would stand in line for 12 hours to wait to vote. So I think the people of Nigeria have a lot to be proud of, having participated in this very complicated democratic process that you have. And so we're all waiting for the results now to see how it turns out. And I think then we can do the real concrete analysis.
Well, our voting process is definitely something you have noticed as remarkable. What is your take on the wait? Do you think that it's getting too long, or are you happy to wait for these results?
I think I'm happy to wait for the results. I think the question is, are Nigerians happy to wait for the results? They waited to vote. I think people are prepared to wait for the results, but the sooner the better. It's, again, a very, very complex process, and we want to make sure we get it right as opposed to getting it quickly. So hopefully the final results will come out soon. We're all waiting with bated breath.
If we could just hold on a second, let's bring in Prof here to comment on. She talked about a complicated democratic process. Is it that the process is too cluttered, and how should we declutter it?
Maybe you have to ask her, because I don't know her definition. She's American. I lived and studied in America, so I know that this will not happen in America. And enough of this patronizing attitude toward Nigerians, that they're great people, they're so patient. Look, we have to face it. The British and the Americans have warned Nigeria, I heard this morning, that they should get their act together and make sure that nobody interferes with the electoral process. In other words, I believe the Americans and the Brits are smelling a rat. And as I said, many of us have the results in our phones. And the question of social media is a wide phrase to describe all manner of sources. I was listening to the BBC radio this morning, and somebody was interviewed who said, who is in a doctorate on media, social media, and politics and what have you. And the BBC guy, who's a Nigerian who works for the BBC, said, look, they have access to the situation room of one of the parties. And if you have a link to that situation room, then you will have the results. It's not a question of going by Facebook and all this. That's not the type of social media I'm talking about. I have access to sources which are credible. And we've been cross-checking the results announced in Abuja and what we have in our phones. No discrepancy.
Okay. Since you're still very much here, I'll come back to you, Thomas Greenfield. I caught you there smiling when he said, well, the question should be bounced back to you. What do you mean when you said complicated electoral process?
Well, I'm comparing it to the United States. We go in, we basically present an ID card, and occasionally we don't have to. We tell our name, they check us off, we go and we vote. Here you have a two-step process where first you must be accredited, and then the accreditation process has to be completed, which I notice could take many hours, and then people vote. So that's what I was referring to when I said complicated.
And the way it is, if you try to marry that with what we have here, because it was seen that, because you started by using the word wait, and we've seen a lot of waiting here. First, we had to wait for the election after it was postponed from February 14th until this moment. We waited after the accreditation, we waited after the voting, and we're waiting for the results now. And you said the patience of Nigerians should be commended. Now the world is waiting for us. What do you think will be that thing, that defining moment that can, tweak Nigerian electoral system to make it not as complicated as you have described it?
Again, it's a process, and it's a process that will improve over time. This is a different process than took place in 2011. I think it's improved over 2011, despite some of the logistical problems that people experienced. And I think each time you do it, it will get simpler and it will get better. So I look forward to seeing that process take place.
Well, Nigeria is one of the biggest democracies in the world, and this should also mean something to all the world leaders and friends of the country. What does this mean to you? As you say, you're also waiting in anticipation to get the final results like every other Nigerian.
Well, the world is watching Nigeria. Nigeria is Africa's largest democracy, and it's one of the world's largest democracies. And we all want to see Nigeria continue to take its place in the community of democracies. So we are hopeful that this process, when it comes to conclusion, will be one that will allow Nigerians to be proud of what they have accomplished, and the world to applaud Nigeria for its success.
Some have said the U.S. and the Britons have warned Nigeria to ensure that there's no interference and that it's possible the British and the Americans are smelling a rat. Are you smelling a rat somewhere?
I am not smelling a rot. I think many people have expressed concerns about what they suspect could be happening. None of us know. People, as you know, are very, very suspicious. So our statement was to highlight the concerns that were raised so that people know that if any efforts are being made to make any changes, that people are watching. It is not a statement of fact, it's a statement of concern.
Okay, I was just also wondering, before the elections began, the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry was in Nigeria to talk to the major candidates of the political parties. We're just wondering, though, are you still afraid that violence could break out in the aftermath of the polls?
We're hopeful that violence will not break out. I think there have been lots of discussions in Nigeria concerning the possibility of violence. Nigerians experienced that in 2011, and I don't think anyone wants to go back to that period. No one should lose their lives wanting to express their will at the ballot box. And both of the parties, both of the candidates have signed peace agreements, peace accords, and we're hopeful that their messages to their supporters will be one in which will encourage them to not go into the streets to express their desires, but if there are any questions about the election results, that they will use the Nigerian court system to work those problems out.
You know, one good area we seem to have left out in this whole equation is Nigeria's northeast region. Recall before this moment, Boko Haram has been there, and leading up to this particular election, we thought security concerns wouldn't let it be. But results coming from that particular region would show that the Nigerian military, the victory they have been able to get before that election, talking about the postponement, has been very, very good. What would you be saying about sustenance of that particular, activity of the Nigerian security agencies in Nigeria's northeast?
I missed a bit of what you were saying, but let me just say that we applaud the efforts of the military and the services of Nigeria's neighbors in providing the security that allowed people to vote in those areas of the north. We were particularly impressed that many of the displaced were allowed to vote, and I think that says a lot about the security up there. the work still is not over. There's more to be done. Boko Haram cannot be allowed to continue to terrorize the people in northern Nigeria, to terrorize the neighbors, and it requires the efforts of all of us supporting Nigeria and supporting Nigeria's neighbors in rooting out Boko Haram.
Ms. Winfield, there's, or Mrs. Greenfield, what we spoke to an American, I think on Saturday or on Sunday, and he said something about the card reader. And indeed, some other people have spoken about the card reader that was used for the elections and have said that Nigeria has taken a step ahead of the US and the use of the card reader. Do you think that the card reader, even though it failed in some states, was worth using in these elections?
Absolutely. It was not perfect, but it can be perfected. I think it provided a tremendous amount of confidence and transparency that could not have been provided otherwise. So we have to continue to work with the INEC to ensure that the problems that they experience are looked at and corrected for the future. But I think Nigeria is on the leading edge of technology as far as voting is concerned. And given your large population, this is the way to go. So I encourage the continued use of the card readers.
But in the U.S., you have midterm elections. Do you think that Nigeria might need to adjust her law so that we have midterm elections in order to test some of these machinery that will be used in the general elections?
Well, I think that's something to consider, but I will leave it to the Electoral Commission to determine how they might use these in the future.
Well, just a little curious though, you said you do not smell a rat. I want to believe that you speak for the United States Embassy as well. Why did it think it necessary then to issue that statement about interfering with the will of the people?
Well, we issue statements on a regular basis to express concerns. We were hearing a lot of expressions of concerns. These expressions were coming from all sides, and we felt it necessary to comment. We don't smell a rat. We want to make sure that there are no rats to smell.
Well, basically, before I let you go, I want you to, excuse me, I think, Marco, you have to come in there. I have a bit of phlegm.
Oh dear. Well, I think that we will wait to see what your final verdict will be on this elections, because we do know that you've been observing very keenly. We've also taken note of the remarkable. Are you impressed, though? I mean, Nigeria is still a budding democracy. We've had 16 years of unbroken democracy, and it's something a lot of Nigerians are proud of. What is your assessment so far with people participation? Do you think that what you've seen, in spite of the figures not being, in terms of accredited voters and registered voters not being at par, are you impressed so far with the figures that you've seen?
I'm more than impressed. I'm really proud of Nigerians. I was my heart was so warm when I saw how people were patiently waiting in line to express their will at the ballot box. Nigeria has come a long way in the past 14 years, and again, they have a long way to go. We're not a perfect democracy, and we've been at it for more than 200 years. Nigeria has been at it in less than 2 decades, and so again, there is more improvements that can be made, but I think all Nigerians should be proud of what you have accomplished over the past couple of days, and we all are anxiously looking forward to the results, and looking forward to working with Nigeria in the future.
Well, Linda Thomas Greenfield, we have to say thank you very much for joining us in our Nigeria 2015 studios this morning. Thank you for being there.
Good. Thank you very much, and good luck.